Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to our /MaliciousCompliance, where people follow exact orders despite the ones they hate. And in today's episode, it's all about bad bosses, guys. They're making workers follow ridiculous policies, insisting they know better than everyone else. And one OP follows their boss's exact orders so much, it gets the boss in deep trouble. The stories are wild in this one, so sit back, grab a drink, and as always, this voice should only be on the Dark Fluff YouTube channel. Let's dive in. A long time ago, I worked as a dispatcher for a small-town police department out west. There was always a bit of struggle with our patrol sergeant, who looked down his nose at dispatch, always trying to micromanage our department and bully our dispatch sergeant. One day, he discovered that dispatchers were handling small routine matters, such as answering questions from the public and handling other minor issues that didn't require a police response. He was so outraged. He stomped around the station for a bit and then issued a memo. It began with a condescending essay about how dispatchers were not qualified to answer questions or handle minor issues, as only fully trained police officers were capable of such weighty matters. If that wasn't bad enough, he then issues a directive that an officer would be sent on any call received from the public, no matter what it was. Our dispatch sergeant just smiled and told us to follow the directive, that she was sure it wouldn't last long. As luck would have it, I was on duty that very night, when one call came in, and then another and another, that a rather bright flash of light had gone over the town at a fairly low altitude. It was pretty spectacular, really, but obvious it was a meteor. My phone, of course, rang off the hook, most people just wanting to ask if anyone thought it had fallen to Earth near the town. It's not really an issue for the town police, but he did say no matter what it was. The radio traffic went along these lines. Unit 28, stand by for traffic. This will be an attempt to locate. Advise when ready to copy. Unit 28 says, 28, ready to go. I then go on to say, be advised, this will be a greenish glowing object, last seen at an estimated altitude of 3,500 feet, traveling in a northwesterly direction at approximately 1,500 miles per hour. If located, stop and identify the occupants. Unit 28 goes on to say 10-9, which is repeat the message. At this point, the patrol sergeant starts shouting into his mic from his radio at home, "Did you get a call on this?" To which I respond, affirmative. The station's received multiple calls, and per your directive, an officer has been dispatched. There's then the sound of a radio being slammed to a desk. The next morning, the issue was compounded a bit, as the responding officer also followed his directive and filed an official report, noting that the object had fled our jurisdiction before contact could be made, and he recommended the matter be referred to the FBI for further investigation, as he had reason to believe the object had crossed state lines. Our captain and chief were laughing to tears, and our detective volunteered to go assist the FBI investigation, theorizing it had gone all the way to Vegas. A new memo was then issued by the captain, stating that dispatchers were to have full discretion in the handling of calls and minor matters for the public, just like how it was in the first place, right? And the best part about this, guys, is how the detective tried to score a free trip to Vegas to investigate. And for all who are curious, OP does come into the comments to say the patrol sergeant ends up being pushed out of the department eventually. The guy finally learned you're only as good of a boss as the people under you let you be. And the next post is about a Karen boss who's convinced she's the smartest person in the room. And you can probably guess how this is gonna go. I worked as a recruiter for a temp agency when I was young and fresh out of college. The manager of the agency was a total micromanager, and she wanted a say in absolutely everything. She micromanaged everyone so badly that she wanted to proofread any emails that any staff member was sending externally. She also wanted to be CC'd on every single outgoing external email. One day, one of my coworkers gets a response back from an employer who gave some positive feedback about the email she wrote. Well, our manager made sure to reply all and take credit for the email, and then proceeded to explain how she oversees all outgoing emails. A few days later in a staff meeting, she makes a point of saying that she should get credit for any feedback the agency receives, since she proofreads everything. Now, the thing is, this manager was not well-spoken or smart, and not even particularly a good writer. I regularly spotted issues with her sentence structure and the use of commas, but I didn't say anything. One day, she's proofreading one of my emails that would be going externally to an employer, who happened to pump a lot of money into our agency. I was stating in the email that I thought so-and-so was a great fit for their vacant position based on so-and-so's past experience. Well, Little Miss Manager comes to my desk and she tells me the email looks good, except it should read past experience, as in PASSED experience. I of course told her that was incorrect and the word should be spelled PAST experience, and she told me I was wrong and that she knows the difference between the two words. I wasn't in the mood to argue, so I wrote it as past experience, and I CC'd Miss Manager on the email. The employer writes me back, and they say that as an employer who hires people to work on printed literature, they wanted to correct me and let me know that it's actually past experience and not past experience. And that's where malicious compliance kicks in. I hit reply all and I thank them for the feedback, and I explain that my manager values all feedback, and since she proofreads all the outgoing emails, that she was the one who insisted on writing past experience. The next day, well, you should have seen the look on her face when she announced she no longer wanted to proofread any external emails, and she didn't want to be CC'd on them any further. Malicious compliance really put that witch in her place. So this is a happy little story from my time as a warehouse assistant. Some background first. This happened while working for a small business. The boss in question is actually a really great dude, but like all bosses, he's under a ton of stress and he has his moments. This particular piece of compliance revolves around a nail gun in use in the warehouse. And don't worry, no idiots were harmed in the writing of this story. So every afternoon, we have a large shipment getting sent out. Everything sold for the day would be popped onto pallets and shipped off to customers. Now, pallets are surprisingly expensive, and if not sized properly, they cost a fortune extra in freight. So we eventually start making our own in order to fit the size of the products being shipped, using the previously mentioned nail gun to put them together. All was going well until the delivery guy told us, and I quote, "Those effing pallets of yours are crap. They keep falling apart. Stop using the effing nail gun and put them together properly." So we look into it, and he was 100% right. You can see the nails from the nail gun were super small, thin, and they couldn't grip for anything. The warehouse manager could actually pull the pallets apart with his hands. So yeah, it wasn't good. The issue was reported to the admin folks upstairs, and the show just went on. From that point on, we start using normal nails instead, and yes, it did take longer, but we were still saving money, and the delivery folks were happy as clams. Now for the turn. One Friday, late in the afternoon, the boss comes down, and the guy lets us know that the sales team had just landed a really big sale. The boss says to us, "We need some pallets right now, guys. I want this to ship this afternoon. So go grab the nail gun and throw some together as soon as possible." To which I respond, "No problem. I'll get on it right now." The boss goes back upstairs and I start putting pallets together using normal nails. 5 minutes later, the boss comes back down and he's fuming. The guy screams at me saying, "Hey, I can see you on the cameras. What the hell are you doing?" I respond, "I'm hammering the pallets up, boss, as you said." The guy then screams at me saying, "Are you deaf? Did I tell you to use a hammer? I said to use the damn nail gun." I respond, "I would, but when we used it last time, He then screams and says, "No buts. We bought that nail gun, so you should use it. In fact, I'll show you how." Boss man then takes the nail gun and he slaps together a pallet in 20 seconds flat, which normally takes about 3 to 4 minutes by hammer. He then says, "There, see? Now do it the right way or go home." To which I respond, "Yes, boss." And so begins our malicious compliance. I pick up the nail gun and I put together 5 fragile pallets in the span of about 3 minutes, exactly the same way the boss man did, which I'm okay with, as it's a ton easier. All the while, my coworkers just laughed with glee. Come shipping time, I realize why they were all giggling. All the other forklift users are out for the rest of the afternoon, with local deliveries, sickness, and general excuses. The only person with the forklift license whom was going to have to load the truck was, you guessed it, Boss Man. So Boss Man picks up the first pallet and he's about to load it onto the truck when all of a sudden, with the jerking motion of the forks going up and down, the pallet proceeds to fall apart on the forks, which causes the delivery guy to scream saying, "What the F did I tell you about those pallets? Are you idiots using that stupid nail gun again?" The boss just stammers saying that we need them sent this afternoon and the nail gun should have done the job. The delivery guy screams and says, "I don't effing care. I can't take any of the pallets you've built with that nail gun. If they fall apart in my possession and damage something or someone, it's gonna be a nightmare. So do them again and I'll pick them up tomorrow." And with that parting gift, in his own act of compliance, the delivery driver keeps to his word. He closes the truck and he drives off without the shipment. The boss just sits there in silence, contemplating the thousands of dollars in product, which have now experienced a nice big shipping delay. And did I mention this was a Friday? The boss then looks at me and says, "OP." I respond, "Yes, boss." He then says, "Retire the nail gun and never use it again, and listen, I'm sorry about earlier." I just tell him, "Don't worry about it." He then says, "And if you got some time before closing, I would really appreciate some fresh pallets as well." I respond, "You got it." And just like that, the nail gun was never seen again. Don't you all enjoy a happy ending? And what a happy ending that was. Just the boss who knew when to admit defeat and when to apologize for being in the wrong. Like, it's not every day where you hear something like that happening, right? And this person comments, "Seems like your boss's ideas were a bit unpalatable." Oh my goodness. On to the next boss, who makes a horrible mistake when telling OP, "Make stuff up." Listen to this one. So here's some background. When this happened, I was working at a big public transport company. One of my duties was to check passengers at our means of transport, to which I'll refer to them as units. Sometimes, at our own discretion, we had to check particular sections or a subsection based on different circumstances and information. For administration purposes, we had to log the number of passengers of every unit we checked or traveled with in our daily report. At some point, there was a change in how a certain subsection was operated, which caused more trouble and aggression to coworkers and other people. This situation had the attention of our headquarters and even the national politics, so we were supposed to patrol and check this subsection on a daily basis. While this wasn't fun to do, we did what we had to do, which was checking some units during our patrol and logging some numbers if we encountered any passengers. And if not, we only logged the specific unit we checked without a number of checked passengers. This wasn't a big deal until they changed something in our logging system, so we had to log a number. 0 was no longer an option. I immediately noticed this and I went to my manager. The following conversation went something like this. I bring it up and I say, "Hey manager, so there's a change in the logging system and now I have to log a number of checked passengers even if I didn't see anyone or didn't check the unit. What should I do?" The manager says, "Yeah, I heard something about this. No big deal. Just log a number as you see fit. It doesn't matter." I then confirm and I say, "So basically, you want me to make up a number and lie in my daily report?" Manager says, "Well, I didn't say you had to lie, but you have to log something. I don't expect you to count every single person if you do check a unit." I respond, "So you want me to make something up, right? Just to be clear." Manager says, "Yes, just use your own best judgment." I then say, "Okay, but if I have to make something up, I'll do it in such a way that it's very clear and obvious. Agreed?" He then says, yes, it doesn't really matter. What's so hard to understand about this?" And this is where my malicious compliance started. So the next time I had to patrol and check specific units, I made it clear the number of checked passengers was not realistic. For every single unit I traveled with, I logged either 9999 or 99999 checked passengers. Clearly a made-up number. I made it my goal to muck up the numbers. So as it's a very big company, numbers are a bit too important for them sometimes, and I hated that. I continued with this style of logging for months, and I even encouraged 1 or 2 coworkers to do the same, especially when patrolling at the before-mentioned high-risk subsection. Months go by without any change or question, and maybe half a year later, my manager calls me in. Manager says, "Hey, OP, so headquarters just called me because they got questioned by the Department of Transportation after some high-up rep was asking how it was possible the number of checked passengers at the mentioned subsection has increased with millions." And to be honest, based on maximum capacity, this wasn't even possible. He then says, "Do you have any idea why I called you in?" I say to him, "Yes, I know exactly how this is possible." Meanwhile, grinning like a lunatic. I then go on to say, "So, remember when I told you like half a year ago after the logging system changed, that I was gonna make sure every time I checked a unit and had to make up a number, that I was gonna make it very obvious that it's not a realistic number? Like, it should have been obvious it was a lie." And if I remember correctly, I logged either 9999 or 99999 at every single unit I was on during my patrol. But I guess you want me to change this. The manager says, "Yes, please stop what you're doing and make it more realistic. I had orders to write you up and give you a formal reprimand, but now that you mention it, I do remember we talked about it and you told me what you were gonna do. So in good faith, I can't give you a write-up or something worse, but please don't do this again." And let me tell you, there were many higher-ups and members of the department upset about this, and they were even pushing me to fire you. So what's funny at this point is the numbers were so messed up, they were no longer useful for anything serious. Even now, a few years later, I have a good chuckle about it. Once again, what a surprisingly nice manager, right? Like OP could have totally have been fired for falsifying the reports and didn't get what their boss said in writing. Thankfully, the guy actually remembered what was said and was willing to let it slide. Unlike the boss in this last post, guys, who yells at OP for following company policy and regrets it big time. So early last year, I started working for a small transport/warehouse company in the UK. As I had changed professions, I had to be trained from the ground up. But the manager's son hit it off from the moment we met at the interview and was determined to get me on the team. I was given an afternoon shift, which meant I got to learn the trade both the proper way from the day shift and the backdoor kind of way from the night shift. Now, it's important to point out that it's both our company policy and a contract with our clients that if we required any third-party trailers for loading, we had to contact them by email and await a reply. Well, night shift being night shift, you usually don't end up getting a reply until about 6 o'clock the next morning when the day shift starts. This meant if we wanted to load anything on third-party trailers, we had to find our own way. Now, my personal way of life was to always help everyone out, as when you need something from them, they usually are happy to provide. There was one third-party hauler which loaded with us quite often. We'll call them Fusion Transport. I end up doing them quite a lot of favors over the months, whether it was loading stuff early or arranging for them to come at a specific time and get turned around within a few minutes. The only problem is that we have multiple clients in our warehouse. Let's call them A and B. I've met and almost always helped Fusion in regards to our client B, but they often did work for client A as well. The only problem was that the two clients have been contacting two different depots of Fusion Transport, and I wasn't allowed to leverage my contact there if I needed something for client A. And this is where the fun starts. Just a few days before Christmas last year, on a Sunday, our client A informed us that they had just agreed to a load going to one of their biggest customers. The load was supposed to be delivered at 3 o'clock Monday morning, and we had been informed at 10 o'clock Sunday evening. Mind you, on Sunday, all of the warehouse crew finishes at 6 p.m., and they don't get back until Monday at 6 a.m. So I was just there alone, manning the office, and the conversation went something like this. Client A says, "So we've just sent you an order info for an urgent load that's got to be delivered in 5 hours' time." I respond, "Well, I'm alone here at the moment, but if you need it, I can go out and assemble and load the trailer myself. I just need you to send a driver down with the trailer so I can load it." Client A says, "Well, that's the problem. It's being taken by Fusion Transport and they only agreed to it if they can arrive at your place and pick up the trailer. Otherwise, they won't make it in time for delivery." I respond, "Fair enough, but first of all, we have none of their trailers here. And even if we did, I can't move one onto a loading bay myself. Have you got one down at your place that one of your drivers could bring so it's ready?" Client A responds, "We've got nothing. And yes, I know what you're trying to say. Our planning department is a load of crap." I respond, "That's about right. So is this a desperate order then?" Client A responds, "If we don't deliver in time, there's gonna be quite a large fine." I just let Client A know, "Leave it with me." At this point, I just thought, F it, if they're that desperate for it, I'm going to venture slightly outside the policy, and I'm going to request help from my fella down at Fusion. So I call him up, and I explain where I stand. He went silent for a few minutes, and then he tells me, "You know what, you've done me quite a few favors recently, so it's about time I paid you back. I'm gonna send one of my drivers with the trailer you need, and a couple of fellas to give you a hand doing so. How's that sound?" I'd say that puts us about equal. So he did exactly as he promised, and about half an hour later, I had a driver with the trailer and 3 guys to help me load it. It was ready just in time for the other depot of Fusion Transport to collect it. I rang up our client A, and I told them the order's been loaded, and it's on its way to the customer. He praised me for working miracles, and we left it at that. The next afternoon, I come into work, only to be greeted by the general manager and the managing director himself, both asking me how I pulled it off, as they had spoken with client A, and they knew we had no trailers to load it on, and they couldn't provide any either. I explained to them what happened and how I got it done. What kind of took me by surprise was, instead of at least a nod of approval, I got yelled at for breaching company policy. Unhappy, I returned to my duties, but I kept it in the back of my mind for a future reference. And oh boy, did I have a grin on my face when in early January, I received a nearly identical phone call one late Sunday night, but this time, I was gonna do it properly. I composed a quick email to confirm that we received an order and that we urgently required a Fusion Transport trailer to load it on. I ensured to copy in as many people in management as possible, including both the GM and the managing director. About an hour after that, I get a call from my GM asking me how I'm doing with this order. I calmly proceed to explain to him that due to circumstances, I was unable to load anything as I didn't get a trailer for it. He was furious and he hung up on me. About 10 minutes later, he and the managing director both walk into the office and they proceed to question me on why the hell I can't get one thing done. So I put on my special face reserved for moments like these, and I said, well, as I had it pointed out to me last time, I'm to strictly follow company policy in a situation like this. I've requested a trailer and I'm awaiting response from client A. The general manager then screams and says, but you know they can't provide you with one. I then respond, I'm well informed of this fact, sir. However, company policy states we can only request trailers from them, unless, of course. The general manager was fuming at this point. The managing director just looked at him, then me, and he went, can you get a trailer sorted through one of your contacts? I respond, possibly, but general manager won't be happy about me breaching the policy again. This is when the managing director says, screw him, you've got my permission. If he has anything against it, I'll take it on personally. So I proceed to ring up my contact. He was happy to provide me with a trailer as he had a driver in my area who just finished a job. I then turned around and I told them we'll have a trailer on site shortly. But due to the time wasted, I wouldn't have time to load it in time for collection. The general manager looked at me confused, but the managing director starts to understand. He knew exactly what I was hinting at. I wanted them to load the trailer with me. The best thing was we use electric pallet riders, which you need to be qualified to ride, even though they're a piece of cake to use. This meant my so-called helpers had to use the old-fashioned pump pallet jacks to move the pallets around, which isn't fun when the pallet weighs just under a ton. I'll never forget the struggled faces they pulled as they were pushing the pump truck around the warehouse, and I was just zipping around them on my electric pallet rider. To this day, I was never questioned in how I do my work and what back doors I use to get it done efficiently. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /malicious compliance. Guys, I hope you enjoyed these stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy, crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's an r/entitled people episode, where a Karen family is caught scamming a resort and they have to pay back all the money that they can't afford. Guys, go check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.